Hey, bourbon lovers. Welcome back to Chasing the Unicorn, your quest for the perfect pour. I'm your host, John, and I am glad to be back with you for another episode. This is Prolog EP2 from Field to Flask, the bourbon-making process, airing on November 27th, 2024. So this week we've got an exciting lineup to keep your bourbon passion alive. We'll start with some buzzworthy new bourbon releases, then dive into events happening across the country. I'll share about our distillery tour at Ben Holladay during a great whiskey guild event that has an interesting twist. And of course, we'll continue our deep dive into bourbon production, following the bourbon journey from field to flask. So last time we explored the world of bourbon mash bill, talking about the different grains and how they affected the flavor. But have you ever wondered what actually happens to those grains after they're harvested? Well, of course you do. I'm glad you had that thought too. Anyway, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go behind the scenes and talk about secrets of bourbon making process. And since tomorrow is Thanksgiving, this episode is extra special. It gives us a chance to reflect on traditions and craft behind bourbon, a spirit that often brings us together. Speaking of Thanksgiving, let me pose a question to you for this holiday. What bourbon will you break out for the day? Are you going to share your favorite bottle, or are you going to have cocktails set up for your guests? Share with us on social media and let's talk about the best pour of your day. So, grab your glass, settle in, let's get started on this week's quest for the perfect pour. So first, let's catch up on the latest news and happenings from the bourbon world in what we call Bourbon Buzz. It's time for the Bourbon Buzz, your weekly dose of bourbon news and happenings. This week we've got some exciting new releases. There's charitable events that will warm up your spirit just a touch, and a unique twist on a classic beer. So before we begin, just a quick note. While we're thrilled to share these updates, we're not sponsored by nor promoting any of these events or brands mentioned. We're here to celebrate the bourbon world and share what's happening with you. First up, we're raising a glass to Pendleton Whiskey for venturing into the world of bourbon. They just released their first ever Pendleton 1910. It's a 10-year-old bourbon aged in American oak barrels. Pendleton is known for their exceptional Canadian whiskeys, typically distilled in Canada and crafted to celebrate the spirit of the American West. This release marks a significant milestone as Pendleton steps into the American bourbon scene. Pendleton 1910 is crafted from a blend of high and low rye bourbons and is cut to proof with pure glacier-fed spring water from Oregon's Mount Hood, where the company does its U.S. operations. While Pendleton has long been associated with Canadian whiskey, their bourbon is distilled in the United States to meet the bourbon production standards, ensuring it stays true to what defines classic American spirit. The result? A smooth and approachable profile with notes of caramel and spice, perfect for both seasoned enthusiasts and those new to bourbon. The release was officially announced on November 20th, 2024, and is already generating some buzz around the bourbon world. Have you ever had a chance to try it? I really would like to know. I have not. But if you have, let me know on social media. Next up, we have some exciting news for fans of Michter's. Their highly sought-after 20-year Kentucky Straight Bourbon is back on the market after a 2-year hiatus. This release has been carefully approved by Master Distiller Dan McKee and Master of Maturation Andrea Wilson, making it one of the most anticipated returns to the bourbon world, at least for today, because we know how that works. Now, this one is bottled at 114.2 proof. Michter's 20-year bourbon offers a comfortable and complex flavor profile, described as a symphony of flavors with notes of dark chocolate, dried fruit, and tobacco. If this is in your flavor profile, you'll find it as an exceptional bourbon crafted for the connoisseur out there. Now, with an MSRP of $1,200 per bottle and a limited availability, this one bottle is one you won't want to miss if you happen to see it on the shelf. So if you're lucky enough, go ahead and grab it. And if you've had a chance to try this iconic bourbon, please share. You can share the bourbon or you can share it on social media, either way. So now, shifting gears to some heartwarming news. Green River Distilling Company is hosting 2 charity events this December to benefit the WBKR Christmas Wish program. These events will feature bourbon tastings and educational sessions led by their national brand ambassador, Karen Wells. The first event, Bourbon 101 Grain to Glass, is scheduled for December 5th at 6 p.m. And the second event, the Glencairn Experience, will take place on December 19th at 6 p.m. Both events will be held at the distillery, with the 50% of the ticket sales going to support the WBKR's Christmas Wish. It's great to see these distilleries giving back to their communities, especially during the holiday season. Now, if you're in the area, be sure to check out these events and support a great cause. Now, for all you beer lovers out there, here's a unique twist on a classic brew. Lakewood Brewing Company is celebrating its 12th anniversary with the release of a special edition of their Bourbon Barrel Temptress called the BBT. This limited edition beer is aged in bourbon barrels, creating a rich flavor profile with notes of vanilla, oak, and caramel, everything we love out of bourbon. The 2024 release marks the 12th iteration of this celebrated annual barreling project, highlighting the nuanced character of their Temptress Imperial Milk Stout. To commemorate this occasion, Lakewood Brewing is hosting an exclusive VIP release party on Friday, December 6th, 2024 from 5:30 to 10 at their tap room and kitchen in Garland, Texas. This event will feature live jazz, vertical tastings of the BBT vintage, and exclusive VIP gift bag. Tickets are limited to 200 guests, so act fast if you want to join in the celebration. And finally, we have some exciting news for those who love a good raffle. The Kentucky Bourbon Festival is hosting its 2024 annual winter bottle raffle, and the prizes are nothing but shortest of special. From rare bourbon collections to premium cigars and exclusive experiences, this raffle is perfect for your bourbon enthusiast out there. Don't forget Christmas is coming soon, and we're all looking for something, right? There are 4 lots up for grabs, so I'm going to give you a brief description of each lot here. The first lot features bottles from 1792 Bottle and Bond, Maker's Mark, Angel's Envy, finished in sherry cask, Hemingway Whiskey Rye, and more. The second one includes selections from Four Roses Bourbon, OBSV, Bardstown Bourbon Company Rye, Buzzard's Roost Whiskey, and Kentucky Peerless Company. The third one highlights bottles like Kentucky Peerless's Double Oak Rye, Monk's Road Bourbon, Barrel Craft Spirits Toasted Bourbon, and Green River Distillery. The fourth lot is a premium package with 5 signed bottles and a selection of cigars from Deployment Cigar Company valued at over $4,000. Now, your tickets are $100 each with only 500 chances per lot, making this an exclusive opportunity. So, ticket sales run from November 15th through December 14th, 2024, or until sold out, and the winners will be announced on December 15th, 2024. Now, please note, prizes must be picked up at Bardstown, Kentucky, as shipping is not available for the winner. All proceeds will go to support the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, a nonprofit organization dedicated to celebrating bourbon and its rich heritage. If you haven't been there to the festival, I highly recommend going. It's quite the event, great opportunity to experience a huge variety of bourbons. So if you're feeling lucky, head over to their website and grab your ticket. You might just walk away with a rare bottle or two or an unforgettable experience, so not a bad deal. That's the Bourbon Buzz for this week. Be sure to check out our show notes for links on all the stories we covered. And don't forget to join the conversation on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and just search for Chasing the Unicorn Podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these stories and any other bourbon news that you come across. So now, let's dive into some exciting happenings in the bourbon world over the next few weeks. Whether you're a seasoned aficionado or just beginning your journey, these gatherings are the perfect way to celebrate our community. First up on December 6th, we have Stave, a Night in the Dark in Northern Kentucky. This unique dinner pairs dishes by celebrity chef Edward Lee with Braxton Brewing Company's Dark Charge Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout and OKI handcrafted bourbon. Add in some live music and discussion about brewing and distilling, and we've got a night that blends the best of beer and bourbon. Moving to December 7th, there are 2 notables. first is Whiskey in the Winter in St. Louis, Missouri, at the Hyatt Regency St. Louis at the Arch. Now, it's the 12th year this festival showcases hundreds of whiskeys from around the globe, along with gourmet food, expertly crafted cocktails, and seminars led by whiskey pros. My wife and Shauna and I will be there, and we'd love to connect with you. So if you're in the area, grab a ticket and come join us and say hi. The second event is Whiskey Fest New York on December 7th at the Marriott Marquis in New York City. This festival features over 100 whiskeys from around the world, including a strong showing from American bourbons. Attendees can participate in master classes, tasting sessions, and meet distillers and industry experts. It's a fantastic opportunity to expand your palate and connect with fellow enthusiasts. And a little bit closer to home, on December 14th, here in Kansas City, there is a holiday bourbon bash happening at Tom's Town Distilling Company. This festival event will feature live music, holiday cocktails, and a special tasting of their limited edition holiday bourbon release. It's a great way to get into the holiday spirit and support a local distillery. Meanwhile, over in Illinois, Benny's Beverage Depot is hosting several bourbon-focused events through December 5th, including tastings and educational masterclasses. One standout is the Belvini Single Malt Masterclass, a great opportunity to explore new flavors and learn from experts while expanding your selection. Yeah, I know, it's not bourbon, but you can still learn something from other whiskeys. From those looking to add a festive twist to their bourbon experience, Buffalo Trace in Frankfort, Kentucky is hosting Spirited Nights on select evenings this December. And their Toast of the Trace event on December 15th. These events feature bourbon tastings, holiday activities, and exclusive shopping opportunities, making them a perfect spot for the holiday season. Lastly, looking ahead next year, and I mean way ahead, the Virginia Bourbon International will take place on November 8th, 2025 in Virginia Beach. This event will feature exclusive tastings, live entertainment, and chef-curated bites. Stay tuned for more details as the date approaches. And that is it for this week's Around the Barrel. If you're near one of these events, make sure you don't miss a chance to check them out. And whether you're discovering a new favorite or sharing a special moment with the community, we're here to celebrate every step of your bourbon journey. So with that, I'd like to move on to Drunken Unicorn Uncorked. After exploring all those exciting events and releases, it's time to shift gears and dive a little deeper into the magic of bourbon. So with that, I want to welcome you to Drunken Unicorn Uncorked, where we break down the mysteries of incredible spirits and uncover the artistry behind it. Last time we explored the fascinating world of the mash bill, breaking down how different grains, corn, rye, wheat, and barley lay the foundation for the bourbon flavor. But that's just the beginning of the journey. Today we're taking things just a step further to uncover what happens after those grains are chosen. From milling to aging, let's dive into the magic of bourbon making. First, we start with the grains we talked about in the last episode. The specific mix or mash bill determines the bourbon's foundational flavor. So once selected, the grains are ground into a coarse flour and mixed with water to create what we call the mash. Think of this as a big grainy soup. This mash is then cooked to release the sugars, kind of like making oatmeal. Next, we enter the world of fermentation. Yeast is added to the mash, kicking off a process where the sugars are converted into alcohol. You know, our favorite part. Now, this creates a liquid known as distiller's beer. And while it's an essential step, don't let the name fool you. It's not something you want to drink straight. From there, we move to the distillation, where the magic of transformation begins. The distiller's beer is heated in a still, causing the alcohol vapors to rise. These vapors are collected, cooled, and condensed multiple times back into liquid, resulting in raw whiskey, or you may have heard, white dog. This term is something that most people have heard of, and at this point, it's ready for its long transformation rest in a barrel. Speaking of barrels, this is where bourbon truly makes its characters known. The raw whiskey is poured into a new charred oak barrel, and the barrels are placed in a rickhouse, a multi-floor warehouse where aging takes place. Now, the legal definition is new charred oak vessel. So I'm talking about the industry use versus the legal definition at this point. The rickhouse itself is a key player in the maturation process. Each floor offers some different conditions. On the warmer top floors, the bourbon ages faster, developing deep, bold flavors. On the cooler bottom floors, aging is a little slower, allowing for the more delicate, nuanced profiles. The interaction between the whiskey, the wood, and the environment is where the real magic happens. There is a bit of science, but in the bourbon world, experience is a big key to this process. Over time, the whiskey absorbs flavors from the oak and takes on its rich amber color. The longer it ages, the smoother and more complex it becomes. This, of course, is all relative to the distiller's plan for the bourbon. It's a transformation that combines patience, craftsmanship, and a little bit of science. Well, I think a little magic too, but we'll go with science. Finally, when the bourbon has reached perfection, it's bottled up and ready to be enjoyed. From grain to glass, every step of this process celebrates tradition, precision, and the artistry of bourbon making. And speaking of enjoying bourbon, yeah, I enjoy it. I recently had a pleasure of visiting a distillery that's done some really interesting things with their aging process. It's a perfect example of how With that, let's head over to what we call the perfect pour and talk just a little bit more. I want to welcome you to the Perfect Pour, where we explore the nuance of bourbon together. Recently, we had the pleasure of attending a special event at Ben Holladay's Distillery, thanks to the Whiskey Guild. Ben Holladay, if you're unfamiliar, is located in Weston, Missouri, which is the north side of Kansas City, and the Whiskey Guild really knows how to put on an evening. We had a great conversations, delicious food, and a very well-done distillery tour. But the highlight, of course, was the bourbon tasting. Ben Holladay finished the night with a selection from their Cave series. And this was an extra special one. It was finished not just in a second barrel, but a spiral cut barrel. Now, this is a unique process because not many distilleries are doing this. For those of you that don't know, Independent Stave Company takes a regular oak barrel, uses a special tool to scrape the char from the inside known as a spiral cut. So, the name kind of says it all. They leave the char in the barrel during the aging process, and it really enhances the flavor with the additional surface area for the spirit to come into contact with. We get to try this special release, and I have to say, the difference was very noticeable. The mouthfeel was incredible, almost buttery in the best way possible, and it really added a whole new dimension to the bourbon. Now, this was a limited release called Ancient Cave Collection Spiral Cut. Back to that name, you know. It was made with their original Ben Holladay mash bill, aged for 6 years in a charred white oak barrel, and then finished for a year in that spiral cut barrel while being stored in what they call the cave on site. Unfortunately, it is already sold out, but if you ever get a chance to try a bourbon finished in a spiral cut barrel, I highly recommend it. While that was a very unique pour, it does remind me that there is always something new to discover in the world of bourbon. But before we wrap up today, let's head to what we call the last call for some final thoughts and really kind of bring this home. So all right, bourbon lovers, it's last call. Let's take a moment to recap and remember the highlights from today's episodes as we wrap things up. This week we journeyed from the grain fields to the flask, uncovering the secrets of how the golden nectar we call bourbon is made. We explored milling, mashing, and to that, I think that covers the basics, but I cannot wait to share the deep details about everything we've talked about so far. We even ventured into Spiral Cut Cave series with the unique Ben Holladay release, and man, talk about a memorable pour. But within all that technical details, tasting notes, a simple truth I want you to remember. Bourbon is a testament to patience and craftsmanship. It takes time, dedication, and a whole lot of passion to create those complex flavors and aromas we love. So, next time you raise a glass, take a moment to appreciate the journey. Think about the hands that crafted it, the traditions that shaped it, and the stories that holds within it. That's what makes each sip, in my opinion, truly special. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of Chasing the Unicorn. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into bourbon production and all the exciting news and events happening around the bourbon world. As we get ready for Thanksgiving tomorrow, take a moment and appreciate the craftsmanship, patience, and passion that goes into creating the bourbon we love. Whether you're sharing a bottle with your friends and family or just enjoying a quiet pour for yourself, bourbon has a way to bring us together and make moments feel special. So don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends, and connect with us on social media. Just search Chasing the Unicorn Podcast. You can find Chasing the Unicorn on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. We're dropping them every Wednesday. And until next time, sip, savor, and enjoy, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.